very, very bad, because people are going to be really, really angry about what China did here, and they're going to want someone to go after them and hold them accountable and so on. And so I said, Democrats, if you nominate this guy, that's not good, because he's very closely tied to China, something to that effect. And of course, it didn't turn out that way at all, because it was all covered up. The fact that it came out of lab, the fact that China was responsible, by the way, not just for letting it leak out of the lab, but also for these propaganda videos. I mean, people have forgotten. They just put out, first of all, there is no Western internet in China. Anyone who's been to China knows this. And by the way, it got worse and worse over time. I mean, 25 years ago, you could still use VPN. And then you had to use very, very specialized VPN. And then it just wouldn't work at all anymore. And it's just, and also the websites that were available just got very, very narrow. And now it's basically nothing. And in terms of Western websites, so they have their own internet. So how do people think that all these supposed Chinese netizen videos about people falling dead in the streets, how do people think they end up on Twitter when Twitter is banned in China, or on YouTube when YouTube is banned in China, or on any Instagram or whatever? Well, of course, because it was the Chinese government who pushed this stuff. So they did a lot of they lied about it. They said no human transmission. I mean, the list is endless about all the bad stuff they did. Now, I thought, wow, Trump is the guy who's going to not only hold them accountable, but he's going to be seen as holding them accountable. So this is all going to work out okay. I mean, obviously not good having this virus, but at least politically, there is someone who's going to do that. But then they covered it up. They made China not being responsible. It's just nature. Oh, there's some bat. Someone ate bat soup. That's a stupid story. Oh, it was the market. Oh, just nature. And of course, if it's nature, then people think, well, that's not really China's fault. So that was hugely helpful to China, but also very, very, very bad for Trump, because that argument that he would hold him accountable was then gone. The argument that Joe Biden, especially Hunter Biden, had these entanglements, and people forget the level of entanglements he had. I mean, I'm not going to quote Hunter Biden's language here, but he was in bed with some very, very, very senior people in the Chinese Communist Party, and lots of money involved and so on. And one of them was then hauled off, never to be seen again. His boss there. That whole story, I mean, no one knows about that story, but it's all there. That all happened. So suddenly, the guy who was entangled with China didn't have a problem anymore. The guy who was going to hold China accountable, Trump, did have a big problem. And I think worst of all, in terms of this natural versus lab leak origin for Trump, was as long as people thought it was natural, they would have thought, oh, he handled it so poorly, another president would have done much better, and so forth. Now think of it this way. If people have been told back in February, March 2020, this was made in a lab, specifically engineered with the purpose of infecting every human being on the planet, and that is what it was made to do, and that is what it will do, no one would have blamed Trump. Now, you still have some TDS sufferers who will blame him, but generally speaking, people would have understood. Doesn't matter who might have been president. If it's made in a lab with that purpose, it's just going to, run like wildfire, and that's just the end of it. So I think the entire pandemic would have taken a very, very different course. Plus, of course, you have Fauci's connection to the lab. He funded it, and so on and so forth. So he defied Fauci much earlier, and then I don't even think he fired him ever. But unfortunately, there would have been no Fauci. There would have been no blaming Trump for the spreading like wildfire. And there would have been huge problems for Joe Biden for being tied with China. So if you take those three things together, I'm very, very sure the election would have gone the other way. And I'm not even talking about mail-in ballots and all these other problems to do with the 2020 election. The election came down to 40,000 votes across 3 states. No one's going to tell me that those 40,000 votes wouldn't have gone the other way had it not been for the things I just mentioned.
Completely agree, and it did create an environment where people were judging Trump against the other pandemics, like we talked about at the outset, H1 and bird flu and swine flu and these other things that kind of pop up and they get dealt with. This was supposedly another very similar pandemic, another new emergent virus, and then all of a sudden it turns into this global thing, and the media just picked it up and ran with it. They wanted to smear Trump as saying he was incompetent, couldn't, clamp this down at the early stages. He's racist, he's calling it the China virus. And then it, I think, also helped to limit some of the fire in the economy. I was practicing law, and business was jamming. I mean, everybody was out and about at that time. There was a lot of economic activity. All of that came screeching to a halt. It also then was something that suppressed Trump's rallies, right? When he would go around in these massive rallies, they really had no answer for that. So then suddenly that tool during the election season gets taken off, and now you're not allowed to do that. You can only go out and protest for George Floyd. And simultaneously, it excused, Biden's kind of basement strategy. He was down in the bunker the entire time, and they justified it. It's COVID. And then every day we saw kind of the death count on the cable news. Death count just creeping up, and look what Trump is doing. Like, Americans are dying. And so it was a full-blown reorientation. And of course, they used it as an excuse to declare national or statewide emergencies. You had Democratic law firms, lawfare groups essentially, come out, sue various secretaries of state. They entered into these settlement agreements. They used COVID as the pretext to do this, bypassing the state legislature, change election rules so that people could register more easily. They deployed drop boxes all over the place, universal mail-in balloting, and they changed the entire structure of the election. They used COVID as the foundation to do it.
And they ran tabletop exercises ahead of time, planning all this. Again, that kind of, I will not, say that this thing was done deliberately. I'll refer to what I said earlier about recklessness morphs into intent at some point. It's just sort of this mush. Everyone who studied law has done that, has gone through that, where does recklessness become intent? It isn't a single line. It's sort of, there's a lot of factors involved. And I think that's the situation we're dealing with here. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it wasn't just very, very weird. For instance, when I saw that that they had Event 201 in October of 2019, and some of the videos out there. I mean, people, if you're interested, go back and search for Event 201 October 19 and just watch the videos. Everything that happened during COVID, these guys were simulating at the time, like in terms of censoring social media, in terms of lockdowns, in terms of all this stuff. It was all there. And it was a month before this thing. And it was just, again, I'm not going to say they did it deliberately, but there are some really weird, questions to do with all this.
Yeah, and is there some evidence that somebody was mentioning some text messages or something that came from Wuhan? Somebody, there is kind of a minority report on that there's people who think that it was intentional.
Yeah, no, of course there are. I just don't see the evidence. I have not seen the evidence. So I think it happened on September 10th, 2019, because on the night from September 10th to September 11th, they removed every single item in their database. This is the Wuhan Institute of Virology, huge database of stuff that, none of us ever, care about. It's just like virus sequences and very highly technical stuff. Boom, it was just gone. All of it was just gone. So I think it happened then. I don't think they knew what happened. They just knew that something happened. Like someone just walked out of the lab and was sick. That's it. They wouldn't even have known about it. If you create these airborne viruses, it can happen without you knowing about it. And this person's, wife got sick or someone at home. Oh, now you have the human-to-human transmission element. And they just sort of very quickly, figured that out. But we had like the U.S. has a consulate in Wuhan. I don't know why. But getting a lot of taxpayer money wasted on all these things. But okay, they had a consulate there, and there was a guy there at the consul general who was texting the State Department saying that there's this massive flu here. There's a big problem here. They're shutting down schools and so on. This is all before any of this was in kind of our rising. We didn't even know about any of this. So this is like October, November of 2019. So again, everything. Yeah, there's a lot of indicators, a lot of weird stuff going on, all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I just don't see any evidence for someone saying, "Oh, we got this deadly virus. Let's carry it out and let's let it spread." I mean, most of all, just as a very, very simple reason, if they really wanted to do that, they wouldn't have done it on the metro in Wuhan. They would have done it on the metro in New York or wherever, so that they can blame people there.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you've obviously been at this for a long time, and I know you've got your book behind you, Swift Boating America, which we talked about here before. We were getting into the Peter Strzok stuff and all of the rigging that was happening back in 16 before we even got to the 2020 stuff and so on. You just formed the Counter Lawfare Institute, and so as somebody here, we've been censored. Back during the pandemic, we got medical misinformation strikes on YouTube all over the place. We got harmful and dangerous strikes after January 6th and election misinformation strikes, and we've kind of been through the ringer. But your new organization, can you kind of tell us, what's the mission? What are you guys working on? I know we've got to build our own institutions in order to push back against these narratives because it's been very one-sided for the last generation.
We're trying to build the foundation for pushing back against the lawfare industrial complex. And the lawfare industrial complex is kind of everything. It's these institutions that push the lies about COVID's origin, and push the lies about Trump in every single various way, and so on. It's the media, of course. They're all part of it. But in essence, and this is what I kind of honed in on. What I found just kind of bothered me ever since basically Trump appeared on the national scene is that you have these groups that are all 501c3. So 501c3 is part of the IRS tax code, and that basically creates these tax-exempt organizations, which are supposed to be nonpartisan, which are supposed to be just educational. Okay, so there's a ton of them. Once you always hear the same names, like Norm Eisen is a name you keep hearing, and of course Brookings and Lawfare, and there's a group called CREW, CREU, and CREW, and so on and so forth. So anyway, there's a lot more of them, and they are extremely well funded. I mean, talking hundreds of millions. And they're the ones pushing all this lawfare. And it was just a gradual process of discovering this world that I didn't even really know existed. So during the Mueller thing, when the Mueller thing started in 2017, Mueller, he was gone, but he had Wiseman. These people kind of do their thing when they were basically hunting down Trump associates. And then one of these groups put out this paper. This is October of 2017. Very, very detailed paper of how. So don't bother about collusion and all that. There was no collusion. They didn't say there was no collusion, but it kind of sounded like that. You have to get President Trump for obstruction. That's what it said. This is October 2017. And I was like, this is what's going on here. And then, of course, 2 years later, you had the Mueller report, part 2, the second book. It's basically a copy of that. They basically took what the lawfare activists had written in 2017 and made it into the Mueller report. And no one knows this. And it was all done under this sort of veneer of, non-profit, non-partisan, 501c3, we're so lovely. And of course the media then runs with this stuff. This is a non-partisan group, 501c3, and they must be, very independent and fair, and they're going to, tell you what's what. And so they put out this stuff. So I just gave you one example. By the way, they did exactly the same for Fannie Willis. They did exactly the same for Albert Bragg. Every one of these people, beforehand, if you go back 1 or 2 years before they did what they did, you'll find a report put out by one of these lawfare activist groups, all of them 501c3, as a roadmap, as a blueprint. Here's what you need to do against President Trump. I'm like, well, there's no pushback. There's no intellectual pushback. There's no media pushback. There's no pushback pretty much of any kind. And all the lawfare victims, they're all kind of fighting on their own. I mean, look at poor John Eastland. Look at poor Jeff Clark. I mean, they're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars or more.
Hey, howdy, XZ. Sorry.
Everyone has to reinvent the wheel themselves. And there isn't sort of this
responding to an email
umbrella where, like, no, we're all in the same boat here. And this is not right. We need to push back. And we need to push back, in my view, within that 501c3 arena. Because at first, naively, I thought, they can't do that because that's political. Well, they can. It's a very interesting story. There's a case from the 1980s called Big Mama Rag, and in that case, it was decided that 501c3 can basically say whatever they want because that's First Amendment trumps IRS. That's the short of it. So it's like, okay,
let me check the AQI.
For not being fair or fair and balanced. You can't get them for putting out this propaganda. Okay, well, but how about you join the battlefield?
Yep.
How about you do it exactly the way they do it but maybe, you know, with a bit more ethics.
Yeah, it's up,
it's up
to about 68, a little bit moderate.
It's called counter lawfare. So because they're called lawfare, so okay, we're going to be counter lawfare. So I don't want to do what they do. I don't want to start targeting Democrats and so on and so forth. But I want to expose what they do. I want people to know what they do, and then I want to kind of build a larger intellectual framework, sort of the whole theory of warfare. I don't think anyone really
for electrical devices that's worse than a blackout.
It's like, why is that my job? It should be the universities who do that. That's what they all get. A lot of government, they fund it billions and billions. You know, the government sends them to do this kind of stuff. They don't do it. The social sciences should do it. They don't do it. The media should do it. They don't do it. None of them do it. In fact, they cheerlead the lawfare effort. So no one's doing it. I'm like, okay, someone's got to do it. Let's try and push back. So it's both intellectually to draw this foundation of counter lawfare, to explain why lawfare is so bad, to explain how lawfare manifests. It's not just Jeff Clark being targeted or President Trump being targeted. It's democracy itself that's being targeted, because the theme throughout all of these things is what they cannot achieve at the ballot box, they then achieve through lawfare. That's the recurring theme with all of these things. And you know, I'd say what they did with the cover-up of the COVID origin, that's lawfare too. I mean, it's a very wide field. There's a lot of things. Again, the same theme over and over. We talked earlier about President Trump losing the 2020 election, partly because of that. Again, they can't achieve it at the ballot box, so they do it through lawfare. That every single time, think of it that way, and then it starts making sense. So let's create a sort of a whole theory of lawfare and how to counter it, expose it, and also help the victims. I mean, I've met a lot of these victims over the past few months since I started. We founded it on July 4th. It seemed like a great day to do it, you know, 250th anniversary. But of course, it's been in the works for a few months longer before that. And you know, I met a lot of victims. It pains me, it hurts me so much. You know, there are families and people had to sell their houses. And I'm not, yes, the whole Trump stuff.
Yeah, I have been. I appreciate it.
There's lawfare within the economic arena. There's lawfare kind of in various places, and that is extremely painful. Now, you know, we don't have the resources to actually go and help these people in a very directed way.
See what I posted yesterday, though? That
we don't have anything like that.
30, 40-second video.
$25. I'm extremely grateful. But
taking us.
It's a work in progress.
His plea.
I hope it works, and I hope we can build this into something much bigger to actually push back. But I know it's going to be tough because, as I mentioned, you have all these groups on the left. They all have hundreds of millions of dollars, and you know, basically start with nothing.
Yeah,
on his last arrest, he's a good boy for 90 days, and charges go away.
The same stuff that you just mentioned there, and watching how these groups interface with each other, and how much support they have. They have this entire like flywheel that they've built over these generations, where they've got the media under their control, they've got the law schools under control, they've got many of the bar entities like state bars and national agencies like the American Bar Association that are all kind of in alignment with them. They then go through these law schools, they become judges, so they've got control of a lot of the courts, and then you can even see various areas where like the woman Cassidy Hutchinson, who was the star witness on the J6 Select Committee, right? She's got some legal representation.
Yeah, but
right, as she's kind of being
that's never kept him quiet.
January 6th committee. Then all of a sudden, she starts getting.
I bet she still goes out there recording.
Star apparatus with Liz Cheney and others, and kind of using their tools.
You'll find a way to fuck it up.
Then she comes out suddenly. In my opinion, she kind of flips her story, says that handwriting is hers. Clearly, looks like it's not. She becomes a star witness. She's then, elevated by the media as this hero, this like savior of democracy. And then she gets a book deal, and then she goes on The View, and they just kind of integrate her right back into the entire apparatus because she served the party well. And they've been, building this for years and years and years, and it's been very effective. So we're thrilled with what you're doing, and of course we want to support you however we can. I think it's really necessary for us to build our own institutions. We got to find funding for these things. We have to find people who are willing to understand that this is a generational build. I think many people on the right are more interested in like an ROI, like an immediate return on investment, but these people have been marching through the institutions for generations. And I was asking Mike Howell from the Oversight Project about this very thing, because they are, they're kind of out there actually fighting against some of the leftist operation. And I asked him, and I said, what do you think the scale is between the right and the left in terms of like operational heft behind these things? And he said it was 100 to 1, maybe higher than that. And I thought, man, that's probably right, but it's very scary.
It is. You can go and look at the finances of all these groups, because that there's a form called 990 with the IRS, which is public. So you can look at ours. We don't have one yet because we just started, but it's going to be, it's not going to be much. I hope we can build it, but as I said, we don't have anyone. There is no big donor. There's no one like that exists. We literally depend on the grassroots. And of course, we hope to build from that, but we'll have to see what happens. And I'll be, talking about it every day and trying to convince people of the need for this. Just imagine back when the major lawfare against President Trump was going on, even just back in 2017, and all those people being targeted and so on. There was no one person or one group that kind of brought them all under one umbrella. Like, yes, you're all facing these different charges, you're all facing these different things, but in fact, your cases are all the same. We should treat them the same, and we should not reinvent the wheel 100 times. Now, this is in terms of specific help for these people, but also in terms of pushing back against the lawfare industrial complex. Now, even the people who are very familiar with the Russia collusion hoax and everything that was done to President Trump, people who spend a lot of time on Twitter and so on, how many of them actually know that almost every single one of these lawfare activities came from lawfare activists within the 501c3 group and were then co-opted by the government? So we mentioned earlier, starting with Mueller, but everyone else since. It wasn't like Andrew Weissman woke up one morning with a theory of how to get Trump. No, all that work was prepared by these 501c3 lawfare activists, all of that. And we can't be one of them right now because we don't have 300 million, we don't have a million, we don't even have 100,000, we don't even have 1,000. I mean, it's just sort of, that's the scale of it. And Mike Howe is absolutely right.
He definitely brought that on himself, though. I don't even feel bad for him.
Completely different levels. You go and look at these Form 990s and see what money.
On human level, I kind of do, but
it's unbelievable.
He's burned a lot of bridges.
So many of them have hundreds of millions.
I was nothing but cordial to him, and he started talking trash on me.
All kinds of people. Now, with the lawfare, there's a group called lawfare, or counter lawfare. There's a group called lawfare. If you look at all the people they have on their payroll, it's all the usual suspects, all the people who push the Russia collusion hoax, the Ukraine impeachment hoax, all these characters that you know by name from that time and so on, they're all on their part of their group now. But they can afford it. They got all this money. So it's essentially they park these people, or they reward these people, or whatever word you want to use. It's extremely difficult fighting back against that kind of money. And so, absolutely agree with Mike. There are, of course, some 501c3 groups on the conservative side. If you look at their 990s, you might have 300,000 or something like that. Even the sort of fairly well-established ones, maybe a couple million. But those are the dimensions we're talking about, not in the many hundreds of millions like the other side. But you know what? We have truth on our side, and I think ultimately I'd rather have the truth on my side than the money.
Yeah, and you guys have already come out with a bang. So you had this secret memo that you had identified that was talking about some of the Fauci prosecution. So I wanted to maybe just give us a quick preview, and then
This is just going to be a short stream. I'm going to restart it. I got to go from Green Springs out to Defiance. That's going to be a longer drive.
Already exposing some of.
I got a few things I got to do here first.
What's happening inside? In this case, this is the Trump administration contemplating a prosecution, but you've got all the defense components who are protecting Fauci, from actually any scrutiny.
Yeah, no, that's one of the advantages of doing this is that people will send you stuff. I hope, at least I hope so. Well, it happened in this instance. So someone sent us something, and it checked out. It's real, and it's a memo. It's a memo that was circulated within the government about a year ago, about 13 months ago. It was written by Michael Caputo, and has never been seen before.
Yeah, that's true.
Spells out the case to be made against what's called the proximal origin operation. Now, proximal origin was that fake fraudulent paper which Fauci commissioned to make the lab leak theory go away. And then it was used very aggressively, and so it became the most cited paper in the world, and so on and so forth. Totally fraudulent. The whole thing was totally fraudulent. But nonetheless, the idea was to use that paper as sort of the pathway to getting accountability. So in a way, Caputo was way ahead of everyone else on this at the time, in terms of, Fauci's not going to get prosecuted, you're not going to get anything that way, you got to go via this path. And then it spells out in very detailed ways, what does HHS have to do, what does the DOJ have to do, what do we do against these authors, what do we do against the journal publishers, what do we do against all these other players within NIH and so on. So it's a blueprint for what to do. The frustrating thing is, I can't tell you that none of that happened. I know some things did happen, because we know, for instance, that the government shut down funding for the journal publisher that published the fraudulent proximal origin paper. So that did actually happen. So there's actually one good thing that came out of all this. But we don't know what else came out of it. Maybe some of the Rand Paul stuff is sort of a consequence of this paper. I don't know that. I don't know that much happened since then. I don't know if there's an investigation going on with the DOJ. I think probably not. I hope there is. But the point is, there was a paper that spelled it all out 13 months ago. And that was, we're very grateful to get it. And, hopefully, this is what I had in mind, where we sort of become a central repository for this kind of lawfare stuff. You send it to us, we'll put it out there, we'll analyze it, we'll do it very properly. We'll, just like what the lawfare people put out, the lawfare activists, everything they put out always looks very proper. If you look at their roadmap to impeaching Trump, they put one out, or a roadmap to finding Trump, charging him with obstruction, and all these reports they put out, it all looks very, very nice, and footnotes, and all that kind of stuff. But we want to do it properly, and so this was the first one we got. Again, we started about a month ago, I hope by doing this and getting more of this stuff out, we get people interested, but also get the stories out. Again, I think it's so important to know that the government, all this Rand Paul stuff, the government already knew a long time ago, and then whether they did something or not, I don't know. Again, if you read the report we put out, if you read the memo, Michael Caputo's memo, you might be surprised about how much was really known, and then perhaps also be surprised or not about how little has been done about it.
Yeah, and it's war for people's minds as well. We have this informational battle, so we got
for sure. She's good. She's messaging me right now. It's what the Chinese
incentivized to join the fight. We got to get them rallied to our cause. I know a lot of people are getting frustrated and kind of dispossessed of being involved in this civic process, but it's really the most beautiful part of being an American and living here is that you have the opportunity to engage, but you just gotta, you gotta keep the energy up, you gotta keep the enthusiasm up, and you gotta keep people aware of what's actually happening. Otherwise, people will just become slaves to the media and slaves to whatever the government says.
And far too many people still are. I'm sure you have this problem as well, where I find it so difficult to engage with normal people, by which I mean people who are not, they're good people. That's not the problem. It's like people you meet somewhere on a plane or at a park or at a party or whatever. I just can't engage with them because the factual basis upon which they form their views is just fake.
Yeah.
And so they don't know anything about lab leak. They don't know anything about what Fauci did. They don't know about the fact that Russia collusion was all made up. Like every single thing was made up, entirely made up. They don't know that Ukraine impeachment was made up. They don't, there's a gazillion things they just don't know because they haven't been told or they've been lied to by the media. Not because they're bad people, because they don't have time to spend hours on Twitter every day to find out about the truth. And so what am I going to discuss with them? We're really just left with sports. It's the only thing that, there's still some commonality between everyone in America, more or less. You can debate, argue, whatever, but at least the factual basis of what you're arguing about is not in dispute when it comes to sports. But I have a feeling that sort of pretty much everything else, that factual basis is gone. And that's scary because what does that mean for the country when you can't have a national debate anymore because people do not share the same factual basis? And this is not like both sides are bad or both sides are wrong or whatever. This is one of those cases where there is truth, there are facts, there are things that are established, that are documented, and then there's all the fake stuff that the media puts out. And unfortunately, you have this sort of split. I don't even think it's 50-50. I think the people who actually know stuff is less than 50, but whatever. I mean, it doesn't really matter what the number is. But that's a huge, huge problem. So, and if I ever try, I've given up. I don't go to like birthday parties or anything like school.
No, I was running around.
I even try. I just don't even try.
Was it just
I say, no, the Russia collusion thing.
It's normal from his house, or was it from his car?
Just giving up. So I just talk about sports now.
Well, yeah, and I
didn't even get a notification.
That, but you know, it's incredibly important work. It was awesome when I saw your announcement come across. So it's counterlawfare.org. We're going to put the links in the description below. We'll link over to the actual memo. If people want to go over there and read it, and then of course people can follow you on X. And is there anything else that we're missing? Anywhere else people can connect with you?
No, I'm like completely focused now on counter lawfare. So that's my entire focus.
Was he actually cop watching?
Really want to make this work. I think.
Or was he just sitting and talking?
Of course, I hope as many people as possible join in, donate.
He titles it that all the time, but a lot of times he's just been doing his ranting
here,
which is fine.
Yeah, no, I mean,
I do a lot of that too.
I used to be a law professor. I also used to be a lawyer. I also used to be a salesman. I did a lot of different things, but now it's counter lawfare. That's right.
Amazing. Well, we're going to support you. We're going to keep our eye on what you're doing. We'd love to have you back, for updates from time to time, so we can share your work and everything that you guys are doing over there. But otherwise, we really appreciate your time today. You're a wealth of knowledge, and we're looking forward to seeing you out there.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
All right, my friend. So that is Hans Monkey over at counterlawfare.org. And we're grateful to have people on our side, very sharp people who are sleuths with the research and who can dig into these matters, building, because we have to build our own institutions to fight back and take up this space. Right now, largely the left is just in total control of the field because we don't have people jumping in and driving the other direction, but now we do. So check him out, counterlawfare.org, on X at Hans Monkey. We're going to put all the links in the description.
Yeah.
We hope you send him some support as we reclaim America. All right, and so friends, what a beautiful stream that was. Hopefully you enjoyed that as much as I did.
We're going to go to Crowder. He seems to think that was a beautiful stream, even though it was pretty lame. Oh yeah, that's cool. She's still in Texas though, right? Oh, it was her Thursday night thing. Stream was she often will do one with Caucasian Sasquatch or whatever his name is. Ugh.
It must look like Europe. How do I know? It's their platform. So let's compare here. What American Democrats say, their policy, and what you see in Spain. Is there a similarity? Should we make sure that doesn't happen here? Amnesty, go.
Yes, my country has offered a path to regulate 500,000 undocumented migrants. 500,000 people we live with every day, all at the market, on the bus, at our children's school, people who care for our parents, working in the fields, who have built hand in hand with us the progress of our country. When did recognizing rights become something radical? When did empathy become something exceptional? Spain is above all a welcoming country.
The only way we're going to have a great future in America is if we welcome and embrace immigrants, the dreamers, and all of them, because our ultimate goal is to help the dreamers, but get a path to citizenship for all 11 million or however many undocumented there are here. All right, okay, that's just one facet. Let's do government benefits, the expense of the taxpayer to...
Yeah, I know. It's been like the morning ones, which are almost afternoon here because he's on the West Coast.
No se reparte según el origen, el dinero o los papeles, sino que se reconoce como lo que es un derecho de todas las personas que viven aquí. Porque nuestra sanidad pública nació con la idea de que la salud es un bien común. Y cuando cuidamos la salud de todos, cuidamos también la cohesión, la convivencia y la dignidad de toda la sociedad. Lo hicimos con la regularización, dar estabilidad y derechos a quienes ya viven con nosotros y nosotras frente a quienes sueñan con deportaciones, y lo hacemos también con la universalidad, garantizando la asistencia sanitaria a quienes aún no están en situación administrativa regular.
There was this weird provision put in way back in 1996 that said that even if you were a legal permanent resident, for 5 years, you would not be eligible for any benefits. And this has meant that people have not been able to get health benefits, children's health benefits, all kinds of things that they should be able to get because they're paying taxes, they're doing all the things that we want people to do. It is not immigrants who are taking away your jobs and who are making your groceries and your gas unaffordable. It's Republicans. So let's give immigrants what they deserve and be able to bring them into our system.
Granted, that seems pretty cut and dry, but let's do, the general concept, the diluting of the native population.
No pedirles a las personas migrantes y racializadas, por favor, no nos dejen solas con tanto facha. Y claro que sí queremos que voten, claro que sí, hemos conseguido papeles, regularización ya, y ahora vamos a por la nacionalidad o a cambiar la ley para que puedan votar, por supuesto. Ojalá, teoría del reemplazo, ojalá podamos barrer de fachas y de racistas este país con gente migrante, con gente trabajadora. Claro que yo quiero que haya reemplazo de fachas, reemplazo de racistas, reemplazo de vividores.
I would argue it's unlike any other large country in the world. So there's a second thing in that black box, an unrelenting stream of immigration, non-stop. Folks like me who are Caucasian of European descent, for the first time in 2017, will be in an absolute minority in the United States of America. Absolute minority. Fewer than 50% of the people in America from then and on will be white European stock. That's not a bad thing. That's a source of our strength.
The left, their arguments always just fall apart. It's a source of our strength. Why? Just why? Well, because they're not white European stock. Well, yeah, I know you said that. But why is it stronger than, for example, white European stock? You made the comparison. Why?
Because of chicken vindaloo.
Uh-huh.
And,
so that makes it stronger.
Different dance moves and music and...
Right. Got it. So that's why. They can't give you a why. They can never give you, let alone a why that isn't racist, when they just said, and they're not going to be white European stock. In other words, you've now addressed white people. You've marginalized them proactively. And actually, this is better. Okay, you've drawn a comparison. This is our strength in comparison to European white stock. And then they try and blame you. If you say, well, wait a second, I think you guys are trying to get rid of white people. Whoa, why did you say that? Because you said that anyone other than white European stock is stronger than white European stock. Kind of sounds like what the actual white supremacists would say about anyone. Like, hey, anything other than white European stock is weaker. You're literally saying the opposite, that anything but white European stock is stronger. That was your only qualifier. Jews. And by the way, if you're going to stay home this election, if you don't see the difference between a 99% sealed up border, between hundreds of thousands to millions of deportations versus in one day, let alone millions, 10 to 20 million over the course of 3 years under Biden, then you get what you get. Yeah. If you believe there's no difference between Donald Trump's view, Donald Trump's approach on not what he can do practically, if you believe there's no difference in approach, when this happens, when the left achieves power, if you allow it, When it happens, and you see this, like, I don't want to hear you guys saying, sign up for your Patreon to fight back.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear it. It will, here's how I know. It has happened every single place the left has attained power. There are no exceptions, not one, in the last half century. And if you believe what's going on there with Spain is no different from our border here in the United States, then who cares? You don't want it, you still have to do your part. If you don't, or you advise that people don't, I just don't, that's fine. I just don't want you acting like you're fighting arm in arm with people like us who always wanted to shut down and mass deportations, but also took the pragmatic steps that we could to make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've heard people on the right now even saying, like, how do I know that if I put somebody in the office like that on the right, that it won't just be like that? I'm like, is it now?
10 to 20 million versus net negative migration.
Right.
10 to 20 million in 3 years versus net negative migration.
Yes.
Is that, how do you know? How do you know you get everything you want? You can't. How do you know there's a different approach? 10 to 20 million illegal aliens in 3 years to net negative migration, increasing hundreds of percentages, depending on which kind of H-1B application. New H-1Bs down 87%. That's how you know. Is it perfect? No. Am I disappointed? Yes. Has Iran been handled awfully? Absolutely. Epstein files, Binder Gate, whatever. Yep, I agree. All of it. All of it. True Social, the stuff, the personal gain. Yeah. On immigration, it's not even close. As a matter of fact, I don't know that there's ever been a single more clarifying issue in delineating right and left than immigration. Can you think of one? I honestly, maybe the First Amendment. Maybe, but even then, immigration is the one where you have so many numbers.
And it touches all of the other categories. It touches affordability. It touches where taxpayer dollars are going. It touches crime. It touches all of the things that people complain about right now. Not being able to afford rent because too many people are there and renting.
Hey, Dev, more 88. Thanks for the follow on Rumble.
All these things get touched by this. You
Say hi in
literally do not
chat.
have a country if you do not have these borders. Not at all. So you can have all these. Okay, I could have a candidate come in right now and promise to release the Epstein files, to make sure that we're not at war with Iran, to make sure that interest rates just get universally set by an authoritarian regime. That's the max you're ever going to do. And we're going to make sure everybody can buy houses. But not have a border, it doesn't matter, because none of those promises can be fulfilled with an open border. It won't happen.
I feel like we're living a modern day like Aesop fable or parable. I mean, just think about it, biblically given to us a king. I remember Ann Coulter saying, almost verbatim, mission control, you can find this, and then of course the sentiment was echoed. I don't care if Donald Trump kills somebody in the street. If he builds a wall, he gets my vote.
Yeah.
I remember saying that. I don't care about anything. I am now a single issue voter.
I remember that line is specifically.
If he and they said, well, but if he deals with the border, I would say 99% reduction. Net negative migration in our for the first time ever in our lifetime ever. Okay, that's what you asked for. You got it and more, not everything and more. And now it's like, but I don't want the king I asked for. I'm not comparing Donald Trump to the king. It's the give unto us a king story. It's I did ask for it, but now I want more. You got exactly what you said was most important. Single issue. Most important of all, because our country would cease to be immigration. And guess what? Spain ain't going to exist. I mean, it doesn't exist as it used to anyway. Spain ain't going to exist in a very long time. Just to be clear, most of these European nations are not, you know it. But to the answer, right, and this is just to be clear, a lot of people, I mean, Nick Fuentes is honest about being an accelerationist. He wants to see the destruction of the United States. He labels it America first, but he says, I want to see this whole thing burn down because I think there's no hope for fixing it. Okay? Just know that that's what you're doing. You're voting to burn it down for your children. Or sitting it out. You know that the left will burn it down the way you just saw. Spain. You get at the tip of Morocco there. Spain. You'll burn it down because you haven't gotten all that you want. Your kids are going to have to grow up in them, just to be clear. Your daughters will have to grow up in them, just to be clear. To say there's no difference, it's silly. It's really, really silly. And I would challenge you on this. We will say, bread and circuses, distraction. I would actually say this. I would say, if you were saying, I don't care if Donald Trump or insert whoever here kills somebody in the street, if they close the border, I will vote for them. If you were saying, hey, This is the most important election of our lifetime, specifically because of all the mass migration, and we cannot survive more of this. We will lose our country into voters. The single biggest issue.
Jesus. Fuck was that?
Talk to you.
I've never heard my phone ring like that.
Larry, come on. And they were scheduled, and others were scheduled. But at times, because of the relationships, I'd pull these guys in, and they're like, yeah, come on, just sit down, man. I mean, Gary Cohn and Wilbur.
Okay? And now you're saying, really, Jews? Well, could that be an issue too? Israel, as we've covered, screw AIPAC with a wire brush. I get it. We send too much money over there. I get it. Could that be an issue too? You were right that the single most important issue was immigration. Who's distracting whom?
You can't even see this house hardly.
It's a
The corn's
reference
so tall.
available every single show. I just sit with it. Maybe we're just distracting you when we say immigration still matters and the left will open up our borders. That's me, Mr. Bread and Circuses. I don't really sell. I'm not a bread salesman. I'm not a baker, but I'll tell you this. I'll have one other company that I've ever created.
Yeah.
Owned, run foundation. We sell 2 supplements: a daily multivitamin supplement, the best in the world, where everything that you want is in there, nothing that you don't need. You have every single ingredient at their clinical dosages listed with lab certificates that you can find on the website, as well as research. And creatine. Creatine is the most researched supplement ever of all time. It's great for recovery, obviously great for strength, and particularly good for your brain. We're finding out more about that now. Immunity, right? Some of these trials are still underway, but heart health, brain health, muscular recovery, we have the best one. It's Cravitalis. It's patented, so it comes from one place in Germany. It is 99.999% pure. $29.99, foundationdaily.com. Best price and the best creatine, the most research. Go check out all the data. If you're looking to improve your performance at no risk to yourself, hey, creatine, multivitamin.
Yeah, I went from knee-high beginning of the month to over 7 foot tall.
That's why we created this company. Everything out there
in 1 month
99% is complete horseshit. Anything else?
Marketing? No.
Did they bring up the line? Is that from Ann Coulter or what?
There's another line that she had that was even more.
I think this is the reference point, but
I don't care if Donald Trump wants to perform abortions in the White House after this immigration policy paper, and that's linking to his paper.
Yes.
Okay.
Because she was
saying I'll vote for him. No matter. This is the only thing that matters.
It's the only thing that matters. Single issue voter can do whatever else he wants. I don't care.
Now, was that immigration? Because now they said, well, he didn't build the wall. Was that immigration policy paper? Was it only about the wall, or was it about sealing up the border? Was it about dealing with immigrants and deporting? Yeah. This is the thing. Well,
hey, were all those people coming across the border illegally in places that were outside of checkpoints? Were they, or were people going to the checkpoints and saying, "Hey, I'm here to claim asylum," and we're like, "All right, here's a ticket, and you just go out into the country, and we'll call you in like 6 or 9 years." What good is a wall if you can leave the doors open? So all these people that are like, if you don't build the wall, it's like, do you think that really solves the problem? Do you think it really solves the problem if there's a physical barrier that they could just scale, or doors are left open, they could just come in?
Even then, whatever was built, Democrats were tearing it down.
Yes.
So there's still a difference.
It's so stupid to me.
All right, we have this next thing to watch.
Yeah, this is also stupid.
This is a trailer for a movie. Should I really set this up, or should I just play it?
I think just play it.
Rarely.
Just play it. Just play it.
Wicker!
Today's catch! Catch!
I'm hearing you. I can smell you coming.
Lick my worm!
For sure. He caught himself up. Loving it.
So pause. I'm willing to bet she's single.
Why?
Lick my worm!
I'm willing to bet
that's the biggest line I've ever heard.
I'm willing to bet she's some kind of authority figure too.
Right. Yeah.
Because she's talking to the men like like the guy in charge.
Well, that's because they're incompetent. They wouldn't know where to find the worm, let alone lick it.
Well, if it's all midgies like Peter Dinklage, then yeah, maybe they are incompetent.
You think the worm's a myth? Let's continue.
Love seems more burden than a prize.
Oh.
I want you to make me a husband.
Put the chopper on the mount.
Good.
Look, real size. He's being all mystical and little.
Oh yeah. I want to see that Coyote versus Acme movie.
Himself some regular sized legs.
It's my husband.
Always been a fan of Looney Tunes.
I heard that he's strong as a tree and just as hard. He's wicked. Straighten me right out.
You know, you've made quite an impression. The wives, they're all aflutter.
I don't blame her. I climb that.
I'll be fixing the bed this afternoon. It broke again.
That'd be a little pokey.
I get it, because real men aren't good enough.
Real, yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
He's always hard, and
Right.
he's so big, and wow, he can fix things, and he takes care of all my needs and does everything I need
Because
him to do.
because the truth is, here's what you need to know. This is
Yeah.
reflective of society, and the truth is, men have crazy, unrealistic expectations. You get ready to bring it up. Men
All right,
have
brother.
crazy, unrealistic.
I'll go live again
expectations
on the
of
trip to
women, right? Think of the
Defiance
think
when
of
I'm
the
done here.
insane, unachievable
I got a few things I got to do here, so
Think
maybe
of all the
an hour or so,
responsibilities and duties.
maybe
It's
longer.
men who put that on women, and really, women are just asking for
So left for the
bare
live. I'll
minimum.
send you a
Men, since
message
they
when I do
can't
go
leave, they
live.
have to make a wicker man. Oh, that's
Later,
right.
brother.
You see men grade men on a